Yo, what's happening? So here late at night, I decided to do a quick video. I tweeted out some of my predictions for the MLG qualifier that I'll be casting this weekend, the qualifier for the major. 16 teams from around the world gather to decide the top eight to be at the major in Columbus at the end of next month. I tweeted them out, but I wanted to do a quick video and kind of go through my reasoning and just, for those of you who may not have seen the tweet, you'll get some of the ideas that I have for who's going to make the major here out of this qualifier. And jumping right into it, um, right off the bat, Group A teams are G2, Flipside, Enemy, and Tempo Storm. My two teams I have coming out of this group are G2 and Tempo Storm. Um, for a couple different reasons. So G2, obviously, they're the favorites. I think they're going to get out in the first seed. Um, Looked really, really good in Barcelona, and even before, like this is the thing. This is a team that's looked much improved over the past month, in my opinion. Their recent performance has been really good. Both in terms of the team, and also just existence has been fragging at a level we've never seen them really do in global offensive, even dating back to like the heyday of Very games. I think RPK has hit a new level. I think it's taken a little bit of time, but I think he's finally reached like that next step. Not saying he's like some badass, but he's looked good. And likewise with Smith. So those three players, in my opinion, have all in the past month or so really stepped up their gameplay. Um, and then they obviously have Shocks on their team, who's just like it's Shocks where at any point he can go off. We saw it in Barcelona, had a sick game on Dust 2, I believe, against Astralis. And you kind of see that the level of star potential, and then Scream is just kind of Scream. Scream's actually found like some really solid consistency of being the star of this team almost in a time when Shocks hasn't been, going to that crazy Shocks level that we all want to see him at. So pretty easily, I have G2. I think they have the deepest map pool of this group more than likely, most experience as well. So everything kind of bodes really well for them to move out. I think they're pretty clear-cut favorites. Flip side is a team that I don't have a lot of confidence in as a squad. I've never really been too impressed with them. They do have Blade, who I think has some good things as like an end game leader, and obviously Markelov and World Edit are guys who can go nuts. Just a little bit unfortunate. I mean, I say that, but that's based off like Markelov's 1.6 reputation, where he was one of the best players to ever touch the game. I don't really see that translating much into global offensive. He seems like he doesn't really want to find a way to hit that level. So I don't have a lot of confidence in them. I don't think they're a very good team. I think they're actually going to get last place in the group. I think Selfless, who's the ex-enemy, is going to be able to beat them. And just moving into that, I think Selfless is a dark horse in this group. I think they'll be able to upset Tempo Storm. I think they'll be able to give G2 a decent match, perhaps. But this is kind of weird because I think I'd give them a little bit more credit if this whole thing with Kusta, because he is playing with Selfless at this event. More credit if Kusta hadn't signed on with Team Liquid, and we all know that that's going to be going down as soon as this team is basically eliminated from the major, or the major qualifier, if they make the major, or the major qualifier. Um, because this was always a really interesting team to me, but I just think that top to bottom they don't have the skill level to meet up with Tempo Storm, who's the next best team. But I mean, the cool thing about that too, that matchup, which I think is going to be key to this group, is that they play and practice each other and compete against each other a lot in the North American region online. So obviously, while they might not have the skill top to bottom, they know what's coming. They know what to expect. And it might just come down to a situation where it'll be this really cool op battle between Kusta and Henny or Hen One, whoever you want to say his name. I need to get that figured out before tomorrow, or before they play in the event. Um, but that's going to be a cool battle to watch them. I just don't think that they're going to have the. I don't think they have the ability to outright beat them. Even if they beat them in a best of one, I think if it comes down to that best of three to qualify as the second team through in the group, I think Tempo Storm's going to have a better advantage in that. And then yeah, I mean that also touches on Tempo Storm, who I think is going to be the second team to come out of this group. Is just the like I mean Henwon's an easy guy to talk about, but everyone on that team, Bolts is like insane in this squad. Bolts is a really cool player to watch. Showtime as well, I think has a lot of skill. Not to outshine the others, but I mean I think those two players really stick out to me when I watch them play. And obviously Lucas and Phelps, I mean You don't really have to like talk them down at all. I mean, this team is playing really, really well together in terms of all five players. And one thing that strikes me out of them, who I would give one of the edges I give them over enemy in that matchup, is Tempo Storm is a team that plays very good Counter Strike in the sense that they're not going to make a whole lot of mistakes. You are going to be able to capitalize on some things here and there, but they are a team that plays very good fundamentals. They don't give you too much. That's the big thing. Like North American teams have a tendency to give up some kills here and there, and I actually don't think that Tempo Storm is going to be doing that to the same extent. And I think that might hinder enemy. And also, I mean, just let's just talk about they're riding a huge wave of momentum. They have all the confidence in the world coming into this group, especially the team they're more than likely going to be competing for that second spot as North American team, who they've just been bodying lately. So that bodes well for them. I think they're going to come in and be able to make it as the second group. So we should, in my opinion, have two Brazilian teams at the upcoming major. Excuse me. On to Group B. Coming out of this group, I have Mouse Sports and Team Liquid. Mouse Sports as a team, I think, has been playing really, really well. I think Nico's starting to hit that new level that, Nico and Nex are like their two big star players that we talked about towards the end of last year. And even actually, I think for a lot of last year, we talked about them like this insane duo as part of this team. It's crazy to think that those two guys on one squad actually started to outshine Chris J, who was like the longtime big name in mouse sports. And I think with Gabi at the helm, it just seemed like they never kind of got it together on how those two stars were going to be able to be effective. They never seemed to show up together in a match at the same time. And now with Nico calling for whatever reason, whether he's giving himself all the fights he wants, he's hit a new level. Nex is playing well. Chris J doesn't have to go nuts anymore. He can play really, really well. Dennis also looks really good to me. Speedy, who's really the only kind of question mark, but I think he does a good job overall. So I think these guys should come out of the group, and I think they'll get first place in it. Next up is going to be Team Liquid, who, like Kusta is playing with Selfless. Liquid is going to be using Adren as their fifth, even though they have replaced him. And that could actually be very, very interesting because one, I think Adren, I'm assuming because they've moved simple to full-time rifle with Kusta, Adren's just going to go right back towards opping. Um, he didn't, there's been enough said about Adren, but he's going to be the main opera. And I think the one cool thing this provides Liquid, because actually with Simple coming over and with Adren playing, they didn't look that good in online matches in North America. So it's kind of one of those worrying things where if they fall right back to that would be just like that would just be awful. But the fact that Adren already knows he's off the team could allow him to play very loose. Like they have this system that they used with him for a long time. There's been some changes made, but I think Adren is going to I think they're just going to come in and say, listen, dude, don't try and fit into any kind of system. Just play your game. Just follow the calls, do your thing, just go balls out. And I think if Adren really embraces that, I don't think he's ever going to go off, but I think he can have much more of an impact than what we saw when he was calling and trying to work everything within the system that he had set up. I think that's going to take a lot of attention away, and I think he could have more of an impact than he did in the past. And actually, I think this if they don't qualify out of this group, I think that's really really worrying to me as a team, even with the Dren. So I expect Liquid and Mouse Sports to make it. And this is where I was going to do this at the end of the video, but I guess I should just touch on it now. Is that, and I'm going to fully admit that some of these predictions, because I know Hellraisers and Team YP, um, I have just out of the fact that, and I've talked to other analysts about this, and it's true for a lot of them in a certain sense to varying levels. But I do not have a great knowledge of the CIS region teams beyond Navi, obviously. So there's almost a bias out of ignorance. It's just hard to keep track of like North American teams that I'm casting the league, going to events and you're casting, the top 8 to 10 to 12 teams in the world who are all consistently at these events and still be able to have a great depth of knowledge on the CIS team. So I mean, to me, neither of these teams looked impressive in their respective minors. Hellraisers, they have some talented players. Obviously, I'm still interested to see Oscar play. Um, and then for YP, I mean, the big thing here is that they had to bring in two ringers. So even beyond me not being super impressed by YP, they have Innocent and Sparrow from what is it? It's a CS:GO Lounge, the CSGL team. So those guys coming in, language barrier because the two of them are Polish already. Also, I think from what, and this is knowledge I gained from the HLTV preview article, is that Innocent is going to be calling for this team. So your caller has a language barrier as well. So I definitely don't have high hopes for YP. Hellraisers might be able to do some damage. They have some talent on that lineup. And I just out of ignorance, I'm always going to pick when I have this kind of a situation. I'm always going to pick, the known quantities, the teams I know. I just go back to what I fall back on the teams that I know more about. So I'm gonna stick with Mouse Sports and Liquid coming out of that group, and you're gonna see that happen again towards Group D at the end. Group C is the group that had a little bit of a shakeup. Mongols, rest in pieces. That's a huge bummer. They can't make it. Visa issues. So I'm really, really sad about that because I got to watch them at I am Taipei, the Asian minor. I actually think, while we're on the subject, I fully believe that Mongols would have made it out of this group, which makes it like just super heartbreaking for me. Um, and that's not me riding this hype train of the Mongols. It's just from what I saw. I think they very much could have beat CLG. Very, very confident they would have beat Vexed. Um, it's SK Gaming, I think, would have given the biggest trouble. And then once again, maybe towards that best of three, they might have stumbled, depending on how deep their map pool would be against better teams and everything. But still, moving on to the actual group that's at hand, I think that it is going to be CLG and SK coming out of this group. CLG, PETA as coach, bring in Fugly. I think Fugly, despite not having the greatest statistics at his first event with them in terms of, statistical impact, I think he played much better just by an eye test. I think that he's going to improve this team with as more time. The scary thing for me about CLG is just the other night I watched them get trounced on train by Selfless. Um, without Kusta with a brand new fifth in there. So I think that's a little bit worrying, but there is going to be a little bit of up and down struggles with this team as they brought in Peta to be a coach, Fugly as a new in-game leader. Early on, there's going to be some up and down situations for them, but overall, I think this is the event they're just going to come into and be hyper prepared for. I think JDM's got to have a good event. I want to see Cutler get back to the old school Cutler of like maybe like the first half of last year, where I just thought he was really effective before he became the in-game leader of this team, essentially. And then obviously the big question mark with CLG is always Tarek. Is he going to be able to come in and step it up? This is like a lower tier competition that they'll be going against. So I have to believe that Tarek's going to have a really big impact and have a really good tournament for himself. So I think they're going to get out. Um, Vex is a tough team. I'm not super impressed with Vex whenever I see them. They were just in Barcelona, where they only beat Existence, and they got beat up pretty bad, if I remember correctly, to the other teams, Dignitas and G, yeah, G2, I believe it was. And the big thing for them is just another team that has had visa issues or some kind of personal issues with Hyper, where he's not going to be coming. Now, normally this would be a little bit scary because Hyper for this team, he's the guy that you kind of expect to be like their main power, their high volume fragger, their impact player. But he hasn't looked that way at all recently. So he's going to be the one who's not here for this team. They're bringing in Oscarish. So that could be really cool because that could be some guy, once again, much like the Adren situation, where you just come in, you're not going to be on this team long term, just play your game, just go balls out. And I don't think it's not like Hyper's been at this massive level where it's going to be hard to fill those shoes. He hasn't been playing well lately, and that's allowed other people to step up. So Oscarish isn't going to have to come in here and be like this high volume fragger. He can just come in and play his game with very little pressure. But either way, I don't see them making out of this group. I see SK as the other team besides CLG who comes out of this group. Pimp, I'm a big fan of Pimp and how he plays and the impact he can have. I'm hoping he stays away from the opping. I'm hoping we see his rifles come out in full force. Magic Boy, I Jesus, that's the name also that I've heard like four pronunciations for, so I'll have to figure that one out. But he's the big guy on this team where it's like he's had all these crazy online performances. Um, I think HLTV's preview listed him as online competitions. His rating is 1.31, and then at the LAN finals for Fragmite Masters and at DreamHack, he was down at like point 0.9 or 0.89. Um, Let me check that. Yeah, 0.89. So very young player, shown a lot of skill, like we have with plenty of players in many different regions. Is these young guys showing a lot of skill, building up the experience as they go. This is only his third, I believe this is his third LAN event ever. So against some weaker crowd, once again, expect him to have a good showing. Um, and I think they're going to be the ones to come out of this. They've shown some good things early on in the year, in my opinion. So I expect SK to make it out. Splice is the last team in this group, North American team who took the spot of the Mongols. They got second place at the North American minor, just getting bodied by Enemy, who's now selfless, and mainly Kusta on that team. But even just watching these guys, don't have high hopes for them to be make it out of it. But the interesting thing about this team is I didn't have high hopes for them to get to the finals of the American minor. They played against Optic, who aren't exactly world beaters, but neither is anyone in this group. The one thing that Splice did really well is play good with momentum. They're very very much a momentum based team. They get loud on land. They shout. They yell. And there's been enough talked about, enough documented how that kind of really high emotional level can also lead to like really low plummets during rough times during matches. So these guys are gonna have to get out to hot starts, in my opinion. They're gonna have to build up some bank. They have a little bit of upset factor, but I don't like once again, it's just another one of those situations where yeah, they might be able to take, a map off of CLG just because of the regional matchups. They know how they play. Might be able to take a map off Vex, but when it comes to that BO3 situation, I don't see them being able to win a BO3 to become the second team in the group to make it out. So they are just going to have some LAN experience under their belt. Don't see them moving on. Now, Group D is a tough one. Let me tell you that. Um, Group D, the two teams I have making out of this group are well. Let's just start with. Oh, there's my Skype again. Jeez, twice in one day. I'm a waste of everything. Jesus. Start with the first team I think is going to make out is Dignitas. Um, this team is nuts lately. They've shown huge improvement. They've looked really, really good. Very challenging team to play against. Guys like Config, who's been stellar this early portions of this year. KRB as well has been massive. This whole team has just looked great, and they had some really sick matches in Barcelona. I expect them to make out of this group with ease. Um, I honestly, I think they're just going to breeze through it 2-0. They're going to get that first seed. The next team, and this is a team I'm going to reference back. This is a team I don't see making it out of the group, is Gambit Gaming, or just Gambit, excuse me. They have, the other Adren. They have Moo, who's shown some cool stuff. A Waylander was, Waylander, and why do I think? Oh, that was. I was like, I thought for a second they had that electronic guy. They played against him in the. He was the guy who had like 50 kills on a map. Excuse me. So Waylander, Moo, the other Adren, Doja, the sex god. Um, and this is the other team I'm going to refer back to that entire like bias out of ignorance where I just don't know much. This is a team I know the players because they've been around and their experience, but we don't see this team. I don't see this team very often play, and I think they're even like relatively. I'm pretty sure they're like relatively new as a lineup. So um, it's going to be cool to see him play, but I don't see him making out of it. It just falls into that thing where I don't know much about them, so I'm always going to go with my known quantity, which is kind of Renegades and Cloud9 are the other two teams in this group. Now, this is like a very interesting matchup for the second team to get out of this group. Um, because a lot of it does depend on which version of these teams show up. We've seen good things out of Cloud9. We've seen good things out of Renegades. Much has been storied about Cloud9 recently out of their performance because they haven't looked good like whatsoever since Sean's departure. Nothing's been very vocal about struggling as an in-game leader, which is a struggle I think most people knew that they would have. But here's what they do have. They've played very good, not very good. They've played good CT sides, and they've struggled so incredibly much on the T sides. So this is what kind of worries me out of Cloud9, is that they're going to have to lean on these massive CT sides because their T sides aren't going to give them much. And even if they do, even if they have a game where they get like 6, 7 rounds as T on a map, like they're not going to be able to rely on that going forward. So they still have to have these huge CT sides, and it really really scares me when a team has to lean so much on one side of the map. Um, and just kind of the way they collapse, I don't think there's a lot of confidence in this team. Now we have Stewie, where we've talked a lot about him, and new players still looking for experience. And you combine that in with the uncertainty of the team, the lack of confidence. All of a sudden, they're playing for $1 million, or the opportunity to play in $1 million tournament. Excuse me. So there's a lot of pressure riding on this team where we've seen them collapse under less, and now all of a sudden, like this is going to be really tough for them because I think you look back and to a best of three they played against Envy. Was that, I think that was in DreamHack. I want to say, could be wrong on that one. Um, where they actually had leads. This lineup had leads on Envious, like leads where you say there's no way they can lose this. This is their match to win, and they somehow collapse in the end and don't have that closing factor. So I think there's going to be a like Skadoodle's got to come up big, and Shroud's got to have a better tournament. Both those guys have had some good events early on in 2016, but everyone's going to need to show up. Um, but I'm actually not going to take them to move out of this group. And this is where it gets a little dodgy because, like I said, it's a little bit closer to 50-50 for Cloud9 or Renegades. Um, and what scares me about predicting against Cloud9 right now is because, yeah, they don't look that good, but they still have the talent to compete against this level of competition outside of Dignitas. So they very well could advance. I don't see it happening. I see Renegades taking the second spot in this Group D, just because they also have a new player, Ustillo, dropped for Havoc. I think that's going to free up a lot of space for Yam to be kind of the badass we know he is. JKS and Alzer as well have both played really well in Taipei. They both had sick events. Sponge has this team playing very intelligent with in terms of like their nade usage. Like they don't leave a lot up for chance. They throw their nades even on anti-ecos. They're making sure they're clearing out corners. They have a very good progression of taking over a bomb site in terms of how they use their nades to get their kills. So I'm really interested to see how Ustilla's going to play for them. But I think between Yam, Azur, and JKS, they have a lot of firepower that they need. Um, and I think they're going to have just the fact that these guys can have better T sides than Cloud9. They have more things that they can rely on because they have these four players and they haven't changed their in-game leader. They know what calls are coming, and I just have a little bit more confidence in that kind of stability in that team for them to make it out. So despite a little bit probably what's going to be some struggles. And part of the reason why it's 50-50 is it's almost like which teams are going to show up. Like both of these teams have a tendency we've seen in the past for them to come out flat. Renegades especially. So there's some danger there with this pick for me. But I do think they're going to end up making it out in the end. So just to recap really quick, Group A is going to be G2. Uh, and Tempo Storm. Group B is going to be Mouse Sports and Liquid. Group C will be CLG and SK Gaming. And Group D is going to be Dignitas and Renegade. So those are my 8 picks for the minor this weekend. And good God, I hope I'm right, because otherwise this is going to be an embarrassing video to have on my YouTube forever and ever. And yeah, it should be fun.